Only $10 to trade using our website, Stocks for Less software, or any push-button phone. Only $10 to trade any listed or NASDAQ stock or any market order, and there's no limit on the amount of shares. Stocks for Less may be the smartest, easiest way to trade yet, and it may save you a bundle. Why pay more? Call 1-800-257-5700. Only $10 per trade.
Comcast Cable offers advertisers the best of both worlds. Locally, Comcast reaches over 95,000 households. That's a lot of potential customers. Plus, Comcast lets you advertise your business on networks recognized the world over, like CNN, MTV, and the Discovery Channel. Find out about how affordable and effective advertising with Comcast Cable can be. Call 426-3952.
Her coffin was taken from St. James Palace to her former home, Kensington Palace. Her hearse drove slowly through the dark streets where those who mourned her stood in hushed silence. Her two boys traveled behind. Now, she will leave, transported by a gun carriage, slowly through the streets to Westminster Abbey for the funeral service, which will begin at 11 a.m. this morning. Now, the Queen, who's been criticized for being cold and aloof, bowed to public pressure on Friday evening and openly shared her grief with the nation in a live televised address.
No one who knew Diana will ever forget her. Millions of others who never met her but felt they knew her will remember her. I, for one, believe there are lessons to be drawn from her life and from the extraordinary and moving reaction to her death. I share in your determination to cherish her memory.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
In a week of moving images, one of the most powerful of all was the sight of the two princes taking sympathy and comfort from the crowds, bravely and stoically, taking flowers, shaking hands, the charm and the grace of their mother clearly evident. Now, London will come to a complete standstill today. Shops are closed, theaters are closed, the mail won't be delivered as millions pour into the city to say their final farewells. Joining us now is one of those who've come to say goodbye. That's Maury, who's been waiting in the crowd for half an hour now. What made you feel you had to be here today, Maury?
Well, to pay my last respects. She was a very intelligent, beautiful woman who did an awful lot for people around the world. So
you said something to me interesting before, that you were taken by surprise by the amount of feeling you had for her. I mean, in life, were you not as attached to her as you seem to be now in her death?
Well, like a lot of people, I followed what she did and thought she did a lot of good. But yes, I was surprised at the amount of emotion I felt. It was a complete shock for someone so active to be taken so quickly and in such a horrific way. So I think that's the way I felt. So.
Do you think that this is the kind of funeral that's planned, it is the kind of funeral that she might have wanted?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Despite being a very public figure, she always hated the press. For the amount of attention that she got, which seemed like a contradiction. But I think this is what she deserves. Whether or not it's what she wanted, it's what she deserves.
What about the royal family? After days of silence, they broke that silence, broke protocol, and spoke to the nation last night. Was it appropriate?
I think what the Queen said was very moving and exactly what they needed to say. But I'm maybe not quite so harsh on them. I felt that they were grieving as well. They should have a bit of privacy. I think they needed to come to terms first before they could come and reassure everyone and give that speech.
What do you think when you look down the road and imagine speaking to your grandchildren about this day? What do you think you might tell them?
Well, that she was, it was a great loss to the world that she died. I think she was a incredible person. You know, she had a lot of go and a lot of oomph, and you know, for it all to be taken away, it's very unfair. And
Okay. Maureen, thank you very much. Just one of millions who will line the streets of London today to pay tribute to Diana, Princess of Wales. Back to you, Riz.
Well, Siobhan, it's been a long day, a long night, and still a few hours to go. Siobhan Darrow in London. Well, in Paris, the police investigation of the wreck which killed Princess Diana and 2 others continues. CNN's Jackie Szymanski reports it's now been extended to events before and after the crash.
The Ritz Hotel security tape shows a lot, but proves little. The tape shows some of the last moments in the lives of Princess Diana and her companion, Dodi Fayed. It shows them entering the Ritz Hotel. It shows them moving about. And then it shows Dodi Fayed with his arm around the princess just before departing the hotel. There are several angles of their departure. There seems to be no sign of photographers as the pair make their way out of the back exit of the hotel. But a viewpoint at the front clearly shows crowds of both photographers and onlookers. Al Fayed family spokesman claimed photographers can be seen racing to waiting motorcycles on the left of the screen, set to pursue the couple. The spokesman also claimed the footage proves driver Henri Paul was not drunk. He's seen talking and moving around both in and out of the hotel.
Let me repeat what I've said before. We condemn drink driving in the strongest possible terms. I have not come here to defend the indefensible.
But the claims and footage are far from conclusive. Paris police say driver Henri Paul had a blood alcohol level 3 times over the legal limit. And photographers continue to deny any responsibility for causing the crash. 10 are now under investigation and find themselves under intense media scrutiny. The photographers say they're scapegoats, blamed before a thorough police probe is completed.
The judge has to examine and to investigate on every plant. And of course, he has to know what could be the different causes or the only cause of the crash.
One possible cause to be re-examined was driver Henri Paul intoxicated or not. He was to have been buried in his hometown on Saturday. The funeral has been delayed. There's speculation his family has requested another blood alcohol test to clear his name. The pressure to come up with a cause increased on news. Princess Diana's family has filed a civil suit in connection with her death. That makes the family privy to information from the ongoing criminal investigation into the cause of the crash. A second French judge has been assigned to solve this very high-profile case. Jackie Szymanski, CNN, Paris.
Princess Diana's funeral cortege from Kensington Palace to Westminster Abbey is to set out at 9 a.m. London time on Saturday. That's 4 a.m. Eastern time in the United States. The funeral itself will be held at Westminster Abbey 2 hours later at 11 a.m. London time, 6 a.m. Eastern. And following the service, the cortege from Westminster Abbey to Althorpe is scheduled to leave at noon local time. That's 7 a.m. Eastern. And our
5 days in the Chapel Royal in St. James Palace, Princess Diana's coffin was driven last night to Kensington Palace, where she lived. The hearse was accompanied by Prince Charles and their 2 sons, 15-year-old Prince William and Prince Harry, who's 12. The young princes had their first experience with the public's grief as they walked with their father among the crowds outside Kensington Palace. It was a show of affection and support.
I shook his hand and then I got all tearful. I couldn't say anything.
Yeah, I shook his hand and I said, you know, they'll always be in our thoughts and in our prayers, and it comes from the bottom of our heart.
The Queen returned to Buckingham Palace to an uncertain welcome after criticism that she and the royal family were not sharing the public's grief. But there was respectful silence, not hostility, as she got out of her car and, with Prince Philip, walked along the mountain of flowers that's been piled by the front gate of Buckingham Palace. When she turned to the people, those close by said she had tears in her eyes. This was the Queen they have been waiting and hoping for, less formal, more feeling. She talked with those signing the books of condolence at St. James Palace, and outside she again tried to ease the strain between herself and her people.
You've been queuing a long time?
They have, of course, but they no longer seem to mind.
Well, I think all the people have been coming here every day, particularly hoping that she would return. And I think now, judging by the people who were around me and their comments, we're, pleased she's back and we feel better now.
At Westminster Abbey, there's been a rehearsal for Diana's funeral, what many are saying will be the biggest public event here in London since VE Day in 1945. From all corners of the kingdom, millions are coming to pay personal tribute to the princess they loved. For days, people have been camped along the procession route, unwilling to give up a front row seat. At Westminster Abbey tonight, there's a candlelight vigil as this country and the world prepares to say goodbye to Princess Diana. What made her special, people have told us this week, is that Princess Diana came down from the ivory tower of royalty and walked in the real world. That's something she has forced the royal family to do this week, an indication of just how much influence, even after she is dead, that Princess Diana really is having still on the royal family of England. Asha?
Well, Nathan, we can see some of the people milling around behind you. Now, I understand that some people did actually sleep overnight to keep a spot on the street for when Princess Diana's procession goes by.
That's true. Many people along what will be the route of the procession have been there for 2 days now, some of them 2 nights. As I came down here, about 3 o'clock this morning, you could see row after row of people in sleeping bags, people with little candles, a lot of them up walking around because it's been a fairly cold night, so a lot of people just trying to keep warm as they wait for today's proceedings to get underway. Asha?
All right, thanks very much, Nathan. Nathan Thomas reporting for us from London, and we will speak with you later on. Mark?
Well, many of the British people who had been critical of the royal family seem a bit more appeased this morning. The family, as you know, has come under vehement criticism for what was perceived as its indifference to the death of Diana. Then yesterday, the Queen made a very personal speech to the British people.
What I say to you now, as your Queen and as a grandmother, I say from my heart. First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional and gifted human being. In good times and bad, she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, nor to inspire others with her warmth and kindness. I admired and respected her for her energy and commitment to others.
Part of the Queen's speech, in fact, it was her first televised address in 45 years as Queen.
Diana's last night is now frozen in time, caught on surveillance cameras at the Ritz Hotel in Paris. Now this is in, followed by their bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, then the driver, Henry Paul. Now about 2 hours later after midnight, there's a discussion, then the couple decides to leave through the back door. You'll see that in just a minute here. And outside this street is empty, and the couple can be glimpsed quickly getting into the black Mercedes before it slowly pulls away.
Well, the funeral for Princess Diana is the focus of our special edition. There is other sad news we need to bring you this morning. Mother Teresa, the nun who devoted her entire life to the poor, died yesterday at the age of 87. She will be buried Wednesday in Calcutta, where she began her missionary work more than a half-century ago. Here's ABC's Aaron Brown.
Mother Teresa died in the mission that she founded in Calcutta. She had just completed Mass and had returned to her room. A member of her order in Rome confirmed the cause of her death.
We know that she died because of heart failure.
Calcutta was her home and its poor her inspiration. There are tears in the slums of that city from the people she called the poorest of the poor.
It's massive crowd. Police has been called in to handle the crowds. There's a lot of rush and crush going on at the moment. So it's a lot of people and a lot of chaos in front of the Mother House at the moment.
But Calcutta was just the beginning. Mother Teresa's order operated missions around the world, including more than 24 in the United States. There was an adoption agency in Washington, D.C., a mission in the Bronx. At a church in New Jersey, there was shock.
I received word of the death of Mother Teresa.
Just last year, Mother Teresa became only the 5th person ever to receive honorary U.S. citizenship.
She served the poor, the suffering, and the dying. And in so doing, she served as an inspiration and a challenge to all the rest of us. If ever there was a pure heart, it was hers.
While she met with and often influenced most every important leader of our time, her greatest influence was on the nuns who followed her. 18 of them worked at St. Malachi's Church in Chicago, a church in Mother Teresa's kind of neighborhood.
What Mother Teresa was about is that she inspired a tremendous group of people to act out these behaviors of compassion.
There was this from a mission in Los Angeles.
She will never be replaced. Who can cover the world the way she did?
Sunday, in her last public statement, Mother Teresa said this about Princess Diana.
She has such a position, so she could not actually come and work with us.
It was announced that Mother Teresa would not attend Diana's funeral, that her health was too fragile, but there was no suggestion that she was gravely ill or near death.
ABC's Aaron Brown.
Turning to other... And welcome back on the special edition of World News Now. We have several people with us this morning to discuss the day's events. Our regular Royals watcher, Richard Maynards, is here. He'll be talking with us throughout the next few hours. Dr. Joyce Brothers is also with us, and private security specialist Mike Zimmett is also with us today. And standing by in San Francisco is child psychologist Brenda Wade. They will all be speaking with us this morning. Mark.
Let's begin with Richard Maynards, who's here, who has helped us out a lot in the past. And Richard, I think one thing that strikes not only us, but a lot of people around the world is the enormous influence that Diana still seems to have after death by the behavior of the royals today and by the people of Britain in terms of their reaction.
Well, Diana was obviously a legend in her own lifetime, and the tragic early death has just added to that legend. She is certainly an icon and made a great difference to the Windsor family. And I think, as she did in life, she's changing them in death. And she's dragging them from the last century into the next century and the next millennium, which is clearly much needed.
Richard, let's talk about why so many people care about Diana, even though they don't know her personally. She cared about a lot of people. She had compassion, and now we're seeing so much of it come out for her.
Well, Diana touched so many demographics, young, old, rich, poor, certainly very tactile. She dared to show emotion, which of course the royal family as a whole never does. It's this stiff upper lip. They're very rigid. The Queen is about as flexible as a breeze block. And what we need to see is more emotion from the royal family. And that is what the public wants. And we're getting some, but I think it's too little, too late. And I think the Queen's speech yesterday was basically a Band-Aid on a gaping wound.
Some people have even speculated that how this entire death is handled by the royal family will in large part determine their future, the future of the moniker. Is that overstating it?
Not at all. This was the perfect platform for them to really put a good PR exercise on to save this erosion of popularity that has occurred over the last 5 years because of the various scandals. They made one step forward by having the venue as Westminster Abbey, then took 9 steps back with the way they handled the rest. I think there clearly should have been a lying in state so that people could show their grief and respect for Diana. And also, I think, instead of a hearse going down the equivalent of Britain's I-95 at a rapid pace, they might have used the royal train that goes directly from Euston Station in central London down to Northampton, and is only 11 miles from the family home, Althorpe, so that people could line the track and the railway stations like they did with Winston Churchill, FDR, and Robert Kennedy, and really show their grief and their respect for Diana.
Would you at least concede, though, and acknowledge some concession on their part to expand the length of the processional route to 3 miles, and by the actions of the royal family today?
Indeed, there were concessions, but not willingly so. I think there was a lot of pressure brought to bear by the British Prime Minister, Tony Blair, who was very pro-Diana and had ideas for her in the future as the worldwide ambassador. And of course, there was tremendous public pressure put on the royal family. And as I say, they reacted to it, but rather late. And I think still people feel very upset by the action of the Windsors.
One other quick question. I'm just going to go back to when you were talking about the Queen and the speech that she made yesterday. A lot of people said, though, that that was being fairly emotional for the British royal family, but you don't feel that way in the least, it sounds
No,
like.
I think the speech contained some passion, some emotion, but I noticed that throughout the whole speech, the word love was not mentioned once. And of course, the Queen is unable to emote and could never handle Diana's histrionics and emotion. And I think that's one of the causes of the stiffness of the royal family and their lack of popularity.
Well, as another development happened yesterday that we should probably talk about. Yesterday, in fact, Dodi Al-Fayed's family released surveillance tapes from the Ritz Hotel in Paris. Here's a look now at how French television 2 covered that particular story, and we'll come back and talk about it.
some of the surveillance video that was released from the Ritz Hotel yesterday. Right now, let's go out to Nathan Thomas, who joins us once again from in front of Buckingham Palace as mourners are gathering there for the procession of Princess Diana's funeral. Good morning, Nathan.
Hello, Asha. Again, we're down here in what is called the media pit. Some of the camera crews and everything from all over the world are here. It is a huge event. This is probably going to be the largest television audience in the world, we are told. The BBC, in its 75-year history, says this is the largest program they are doing. They're beaming pictures of this to over 200 countries in 44 languages. They will be in charge pretty much of providing pictures of the service in Westminster Abbey. There will be something like 20 cameras in the church. Other cameras are not allowed in, so it'll be a pool feed. But they will cover, and the rest of the media will cover the entire procession as it goes down the mall and into the church for the ceremony. As I say, there are camera crews and journalists from all over the world here. It is turning into one of the biggest media events ever. The wedding of Diana was the largest one before that. That was in 1981, and that will be minuscule by the numbers of people who will see this one. That was less than 1 million people, I believe, saw that one. But technology has changed. The world has changed. So many more places